Hey gals, welcome to part 2 of this Sonny with a Chance video. If you want to see part 1 before you watch part 2, click on something. I'll put something on the screen to let you know that, part 1 exists. You don't have to watch them in order, if I'm being completely honest. You can watch this one and then watch the next one. Nothing really, you'll get the idea. But I decided to split the video in two, mainly so I can get part 1 out on Halloween Day, because I had a Halloween-specific joke at the beginning, and I was too lazy to cut it out, so I did more work, actually, and worked overtime to make sure part of it came out on Halloween. So the next part should be coming out the day after, if not a little bit after. I'm a full-time college student. I don't have a lot of time to be doing these things, but like I said, just so you know, there's more SWAC discussion out there than just this video on my channel, so go check that out, and hit subscribe. Ugh. Okay, on to the video. Okay, next I'm going to talk about Tawni Hart. Now, I actually have grown to like Tawni over time. There were certain moments where I was like, oh, she's good. I love her. She's my favorite character. But that would quickly change for lots of reasons. I mean, first of all, you can't top Chad, let's be honest. But yeah, there's a lot of moments where Tawni is really good. And I feel like that's very drowned out by a lot of the bad. So in the pilot is where Tawni is at her worst, and I'm so glad that they decided to shift the idea of her character from that moment, because it was not good. In the pilot, Tawni is jealous that there's another girl on the cast, and they kind of make a joke how Zora isn't considered a girl. But yeah, her whole point in the pilot is that she's basically a mean cheerleader, and I feel like that vibe just didn't fit the idea of the show at all. Tawni works best when she is catatonically self-absorbed and self-obsessed. To the point where it's she needs somebody to help her do things because she actually can't do other things. It's great. She's actually very similar to Chad in that sense. And when they have, scenes together, I think it's really fun as well. Tawni is a person who wants to be, real famous, serious famous, the biggest star in the world. But she's on So Random, which is, a middling TV show. It's described as, getting okay, if not, the lowest ratings on the network. And, surrounded by a bunch of goofballs who, don't care about their public image at all. But, she really does. So a lot of her conflict is trying to get everyone else to be serious when they just can't be because they're just having too much fun. So that can cause her to be a little bit of a stick in the mud. She's usually complaining most of the time, and I feel like that's not a good use of her character. But that's where we land a lot of the time. Sometimes it does work, where she decides to get silly and scheme because she wants her public image to be better. Again, I mentioned that with Grady, where they're in magazines and she wants them to seem cooler in magazines. So there's an episode where she makes a fake club just on the studio lot called The Basement or something, and has Zora pretend to be paparazzi and take photos of them at this exclusive club and send them to the magazines so they'll have a cooler reputation. I feel like they could have done more with that publicity angle of things, but they then switch it to everyone wants to go to this new exclusive club, but it doesn't exist, so Nico, Grady, and Tawni have to fake it, which is fine. The plot is still good. The episode's still pretty good. But I feel like I love the idea of the So Random cast being micro celebrities. I feel like that could have been explored more as well. I mean, they do a good job. They do a few episodes, but more. I want more. Again, there are a few episodes where it's Tawni and Sonny team building episode because they started out hating each other and kind of grow to have a mutual respect for each other. Specifically, Sonny is the sunny one who Sonny is the happy, sunshiny one, mind the pun, who, just wants to be Tawni's friend, and Tawni is I don't care about you. Which is why when the magazine compares them and says that, Sonny is, prettier or whatever than Tawni, that's why it, really emotionally affects her and she shaves her head. Because that's, the biggest deal to her. All she cares about is her self-image. And I feel like that's another interesting thing that they could delve into more, but they don't. But also they didn't need to, because knowing Disney Channel, they would just make it a very special episode, and I'm not interested in that. They do kind of keep pitting Tawni and Sonny up against each other. It's almost like the world wants them to be enemies, but Sonny is choosing to reject that and have them be friends. And Tawni kind of like reluctantly agrees. Of course, they are the Check It Out girls, and it kind of seems that like they're really good like working partners, like they work really well together, but outside of like, you know, doing comedy and sketches, they're like they have a hard time meshing, especially because they have to share a dressing room now. It's like a whole thing. And I think the bank robbing episode is the one that they do the best. When they rob a bank together, I feel like that's the best for bonding them together. You know, because if there's like an outside source that's like just too wacky even for them, they can kind of bond in the sense that like, okay, we agree that that's weird, right? So like we can be friends. And I feel like that episode does a good job of that. A lot of the time, Tawni can seem like she's an outsider to the group. Like, she doesn't want to deal with their hijinks. She doesn't want to hang out with she doesn't like anybody on her cast. So the episodes where they, like, show that she's more alike them than not like them are the ones where I think it's the best. Where they show that she's a bit of a weirdo, too. You know, she's a bit kooky as well. She's not all normal like they think they are. Because a common theme throughout the show is that the randoms, the So Random cast, are like these weirdo, goofy outsiders compared to all the other TV shows. Probably because their ratings are the lowest or something. I don't know. Tawni's home life as well, again, is only mentioned in one episode, but like I really do feel like is like kind of a big deal, at least for me it is. So like I said, in the episode Heart to Heart, we see that Tawni is consistently given commercial gigs where she's supposed to play a dumb blonde girl or like a housewife of types, you know, and she's like rehearsing for it and she's like, I hate this role, like I don't want to be in this commercial, I think it's demeaning to my character and like it's ruining my chances of taking on some more serious roles, and that's upsetting. And so Sonny is like, you should fire your manager for keep giving you these stuff, and she's like, yeah, I will. Manager's her mom. Oops. And kind of the joke of Tawni's mom is that she's literally like a copy of her. Like, they dress the exact same, they have the exact same jokes, and they look the exact same. So it's like, wow, you look a lot like your mom. And the mom still dresses like she's a teenager and, you know, acts like a petulant teenager, even though she's the mother to this girl. And I feel like that would be a very interesting thing to examine. The way that, like, momagers and stuff, like, intertwine their life and their success with their child's, and like kind of like live vicariously through them. Like that's pretty much very common in the child acting industry, or like the famous child industry. Like that's a very common thing that happens. And this could have been like a very funny but still like biting social commentary on like how bad that is and how upsetting that is. But like I said, they get this interesting idea and just resort it to a stock plot that, you know, you could find in the 99-cent bin at your local Family Dollar. So instead of trying to fix this toxic family dynamic, or just, you know, not bring it up at all, they just kind of skirt around it awkwardly and then pretend and hope that the audience didn't know. I noticed, even as a kid, I was like, that's really weird that the mom has the same wardrobe as the daughter, and the daughter's supposed to be like in high school. Like, that's weird. If I end up saying this for every character, I apologize. But I think they could have done more with Tawni. I think the show had its moments where I was like, that's really funny. That's a really good thing to do with her character. But they don't do that because when they don't know what to do with her, they just resort to the mean cheerleader archetype. And it just does not work for her character. Because not only does it make no sense within the plot, but it's also like not funny and doesn't help make the show better. So I want more for Tawni. Justice for Tawni. That's what I say. I hope people don't mind my wrinkly bedsheet. I sleep on this bed. Shocker. Welcome to day 2. Yeah, any continuity in this video is just gone. I filmed some pickup material before this, so I apologize. I'm really sorry if this video is a bit of a mess. I think that's become like a characteristic of this channel, is that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I have many issues with continuity. This is why I never film on camera, because if I record like a segment from like the very beginning of the video, like 7 months after I recorded that part, no one notices because I'm using the same microphone and you can't see me. But when it comes to doing it on camera, it just looks real weird. So I apologize. Let's talk about Zora Lancaster, One of my favorite characters, I think. Well, when she's there. The most important thing to mention with Zora as a character is that she's never in the show. This is something I talked about in my Max Russo video, where when you hire a cast member who is younger than the rest of the cast, they will clearly have different working hours. So a big problem with Zora is that she's just not in any of the episodes. Like, if I were to do a count, if I were to do the math, I would say she's probably in half, if not less than half, of the episodes. And it's just very awkward sometimes. Like in the two-parter where Sonny goes back to Wisconsin or whatever and is supposed to shoot like a ball of cheese out of a cannon, this show is weird sometimes. It's either a two-parter or a three-parter. And as far as I remember, in the first part, Zora just isn't there. They just don't have Zora in the episode. So then in part 2, they have to like explain away why Zora wasn't there. And it's like, why not just hire her for both episodes? Was it that hard? Was there that little money at the Disney Corporation? I just have to assume that the actress couldn't work for multiple episodes and could only sign a contract for a certain number of episodes for whatever reason, whether it be personal or like legal or whatever. So that's why Zora's never in the show. And I asked the same question that I asked in the Max Russo video, which is, why include the character in the first place? Because as much as I like Zora and I like her presence and I think she's really cool within the show, it's like a really cool concept that she's there. It's like, if you're not going to do anything with that, then why do it in the first place? Let's be honest with each other, you and me, you know? Big SWAC fans over here. Let's be honest with each other. Zora does not affect the plot in any way. The episodes that do revolve around her could easily just be cut out because they have nothing to do with the overall story. And she's not there enough to where if you did remove her from the show, it wouldn't make a difference at all. And that's very sad because I want a character that has a lot of interesting traits of theirs to be important to the show. But she just isn't. So, who is Zora Lancaster? That's a great question. I would like to know too. Zora as a character is described as like a weird, odd, gremlin creature thing. And I feel like that's where Zora works best. When she's just like this very odd, goblin-esque thing. One of my favorite jokes from Zora, like ever, was early on in the series. And it's when Sonny goes to the Mackenzie Falls cast because they have like all this money because it's like the highest performing show. And Sonny is just like, you know, using their resources, getting like a mani-pedi or something. And Zora like runs in. They were like the So Random cast were gonna like barge in and like, you know, prank the Mackenzie Falls cast or something. So Zora runs in and she gets on the floor and she's like, oh, look at this dust on the carpet, and is like obsessed with like this vintage carpet and the kind of dust on it. Like, that's hilarious. Also the fact that Zora seems to hang out in the air vent of the dressing room studio. Like, that's very funny to me that she's like, no. I want to hang out in the air vent. I don't want my own dressing room. The air vent is perfect. So I feel like leaning into the fact that she's like this weird goblin thing would have made her character more unique and funny. But a lot of the times, she's just there to make fun of the other cast members, which also works. I feel like these two could have been together, like they could have consolidated all of these personality traits. But since the writers are so lazy, they don't really like think about writing for each character. They just write a bunch of scenes, and then in the scene, they'll just have a different character say a response, you know? It's a very easy thing to do if you're lazy or if you're not a talented writer, to just kind of like write every character talking the same. Like, they all talk the same, they all make the same jokes, the same references. And for Zora, that makes the most sense because they established her as like this really weird off-the-wall character. So for her in random episodes to just start talking the same way Tawni does doesn't make any sense to me. I also think it would have been cool if like the whole cast, the randoms, saw Zora as like their little sister or something and like were very protective of her. They kind of deal with this a little bit in like the Girl Scout episode where Sonny wants to help Zora like get as many Girl Scout cookies as possible or whatever for the bike. Again, another stock plot. But like the idea that all of them just like love Zora and want to protect her because, you know, she's younger than the rest of them. I feel like when that's utilized, the show is really fun. Again, I also like the idea of Zora being like the funniest cast member on the show because she's just so weird, so she can just like, she's willing to do whatever for the camera. I feel like you always need at least one comedy person in your like comedy group who is like willing to do anything, you know, like they'll lick the floor, they'll do whatever. I say specifically lick the floor because when I was a theater kid, don't say anything. I was not on stage, I was a techie. Actually, that sounds worse. We would have to go and see all of the other schools like one act plays as like a competition thing, and one of them was like this really avant-garde play. Like people went real weird with these plays. And it was one where there were a bunch of like basically robots that had become sentient. In a scene, one of the people playing like the robot has to lick the floor. Like actually lick the floor. And you could see everyone like just gasp in shock because it was at my school's, you know, like stage that they were performing it at. And I remember all of us were like, I would not lick our floor at this theater program, you know, like we would not lick the floor. And so the fact that somebody from like fucking like 20 hours away was doing it was wild. Anyways, I feel like you need someone like that in your comedy group who will just do whatever. And Zora, I feel like, is that person. You know, she's willing to do anything for the bit. There's also an episode where they like kind of establish that Zora is different from the rest of the cast because of her age. And like that is an actual element that they need to discuss more. I'm pretty sure it's the episode where Sonny, again, meddles, as she always does, and tries to get Zora to date, like, a younger cast member from Mackenzie Falls. You know, like, somebody shows up on the lot who's the same age as her, and all of a sudden Sonny is like, you should date. And it's like, just because they're the same age doesn't mean they're compatible romantically, you know? But that doesn't end up working out for very creepy reasons. And Zora is crushed, and so when they go to, like, you know, confront her and comfort her at home, you find out that she's, like, a girly girl, and she's not weird and gross. She's, like, actually, like, stuffed animals and stuff. Like, God forbid a character have nuance. But I feel like this scene, he tries to comfort Zora, doesn't really work well, because they just I don't think the writers thought through enough, like, what they wanted to say with this plot line. Because I understand the message, you know? Zora is much younger than the rest of them, so she's in a very different point in her life, so she's not, like, you know, as willing to go on dates randomly with people on the set, you know? Like, she's not there yet, and that's okay. Or they could have just not questioned it at all and just have it be a normal thing of this very absurd world. Is it like, yeah, Zora's a peer amongst all these other people even though she's like 4 years younger than them. Don't question it. And then I wouldn't. But if you ask me to question it and then don't give satisfying answers, it pisses me off. That's the case for a lot of things in this show. Trust me. So I apologize if I don't have as much to say about Zora as I probably would with other characters. That's mainly because she's not in the show. It's finally time to talk about the Chad Dylan Cooper. The CDC, the star of the hit TV show Mackenzie Falls, Zac Efron's #1 hater, the Chad Dylan Cooper, Frankie Jonas's best friend. Bend this way, please. Thank you. Okay. So what is there to say about Chad Dylan Cooper that hasn't already been said before? Some things, at least, right? Chad Dylan Cooper can be best described as one of the most self-absorbed people in the whole world. And I love him for it. I can't get enough of it. I feel like in the first episode that Chad Dylan Cooper is introduced, which is not the pilot, by the way. He wasn't in the pilot at all. Like, even in the intro, he wasn't there. Yes, he was. I'm just stupid. Please ignore me. So he was definitely like a later on addition, and thank God for it, because the only thing people remember this show by is Chad Dylan Cooper. Early on, I think the CDC was supposed to be a lot more of like a douchebag, you know, and less silly, less goofy, but over time he definitely became more absurd in that sense. A cool part of the show is them establishing the beef between different TV shows. I wonder if this was a real thing, like in real life. The Wizards of Waverly Place cast just hated the Hannah Montana cast. That'd be funny to me. The plotline in Season 1, Episode 2 specifically, I think is really funny. It's a plotline where there's a golf cart and there's a parking spot. I guess the So Random and Mackenzie Falls cast like fight over this specific parking spot for the golf carts, which is why the So Random cast just never move the golf cart because they want to keep the parking spot on their turf. But Sonny doesn't know this because she's new, so she moves the golf cart, and immediately the Mackenzie Falls cast put themselves there, and so now they have to like fight over it or something, which is the main reason why Sonny and Chad kind of start having beef. In general, I love the idea of the parody of Mackenzie Falls. I was kind of waiting until Chad Dylan Cooper's section to talk about it. So Mackenzie Falls is another TV show that's shot in the same building on the same studio lot, or studio lots next to each other. So because of that, they're constantly interacting with each other. So Mackenzie Falls is very clearly supposed to be like a joke parody of like those overly dramatic soap operas or like CW shows that have like random supernatural stuff in them. The main soap opera that I'm aware of is General Hospital, because that's the one that like my mom watched, but I know other shows like Days of Our Lives and Desperate Housewives. No, that's not a soap opera. Although I guess it could be. And it seems to be like a kid version of that. Although I'm not sure if Mackenzie Falls is supposed to be like for kids or not. Like, is it House of Anubis or Days of Our Lives? I couldn't tell you. Because it seems that both kids and adults alike recognize and love Chad Dylan Cooper. So I guess it's just one of those overall very large, big TV shows that like just sweep the nation, you know? And of course, Chad Dylan Cooper himself plays the titular role of Mackenzie Falls. I don't think that's the character's name. I think his name is Mackenzie, but I don't know what his last name is. I can't remember. I just call the character Mackenzie Falls. Also, the parody that the So Random cast do of Mackenzie Falls, which is Mackenzie Stalls.
But I'm not the only one with a secret shame.
You mean?
Yes! You forgot to flush.
The #1 show is now #2. Mackenzie Stalls.
Starring Chad Dylan Cooper!
Cooper?
I quite like that pun, actually, because the entire plot takes place in a bathroom, so it's like kind of a double entendre of like, this show is shit. Before rewatching the show, I always just thought that like it was a common recurring joke on So Random that they would do sketches making fun of Mackenzie Falls. And that's why the two teams hated each other, because So Random kept making fun of Mackenzie Falls. But they only did it once. Like, again, there are many sketches within So Random that I remember, like, vividly in my mind and thinking that they were re-recurring when they weren't. And there are multiple re-recurring, like, sketches that I had no idea they did more than once. So, since Mackenzie Falls is, like, one of the biggest shows ever in this universe, their cast gets, like, pampered and treated very well, versus the So Random cast who gets like gross slop and get treated like garbage by the network executives. I wonder if this is actually true. I wonder if this speaks to something that's, you know, in reality. Because that would be very upsetting if, like, at Disney Channel, the show that had, like, low ratings the actors would get treated like garbage. I really hope that's not the case. Because, you know, there were little children on these networks, but besides the point, I guess. I love Mackenzie Falls, and I hope Mackenzie Falls loves me. One of my favorite jokes that sets up Channy is the idea of being addicted to Mackenzie Falls. The So Random cast made a pact that none of them would watch Mackenzie Falls, and Sonny accidentally falls into that. I think it's because her mom loves the show, and so like she ends up watching it with her mom and then becomes obsessed and binges the entire thing. Which of course is how Channy originally starts, is that whole plot line. And then you find out that like all of the So Random cast have seen Mackenzie Falls and they're trying their best to like wean off of it. Like it's like a drug metaphor. It's quite funny. I think it's very funny. I think the reason why people love Chad Dylan Cooper so much is because the performance is just absolutely selling it. And also, they give him really good jokes. Like, I feel like all of the effort for, you know, funny one-liners and, like, interesting storylines were given to Chad Dylan Cooper. You can find multiple videos on the internet of people just, you know, making compilations of all the funny, silly one-liners that Chad Dylan Cooper says. Because Sterling Knight is just amazing at his performance. He does a really good job of selling this character. And also, the writing is just really funny. Like, if I were to read it on a script, I would think it's funny. I just wish all the other characters had that same level of comedy. Something that they do establish is that there is a sort of emotional core with Chad. He's not all just goofy, silly moments and being self-absorbed. Although his obsession with himself gets to a point where it's a problem, And that's more when it comes to Channy, so we'll only touch on it a little bit here. So here's the fundamental flaw with the character of Chad Dillon Cooper. While Sonny's may be being nice to a fault or feeling like they should be in people's business all the time, Chad Dillon Cooper's main flaw is that he is self-absorbed to the point of farce. So like I said, Chad as a person is very funny, he's very hilarious, and his self-preservation, because he's obsessed with himself, does cause him to have a lot of funny hijinks that happen within the plot. But where this becomes a problem is when he's supposed to have real, meaningful relationships with other characters in the show. There are multiple times where something important is supposed to be happening, or like a character beat is going on, and Chad can't help but just not care or be so obsessed with himself that like the growth just doesn't happen. It kind of gets infuriating at some points. This is most obvious when it comes to Channy. But other than that, I love Chad Dillon Cooper. He's so funny. They have so many funny jokes with him. I love the running joke with Zac Efron. I'm just going to assume the reason why Chad Dillon Cooper hates Zac Efron so much is because they were co-stars in 17 Again. That's just my personal thought. Also, that moment where he references Frankie Jonas is very funny as well. Very good joke. I too enjoy a bonus Jonas, so good stuff there. I think it's time. Yeah, I think it's time to talk about Channy.
Well, then do something about it.
Okay, I will.
Great.
Sonny, will you go out with me?
If you're new to the channel, then let me explain. The way that we do things around here is that we talk about the show in general, and then we do a character analysis, and then we do a ships analysis, and then we talk about the finale. Because usually the way that the ships conclude is also how the series concludes. Because Disney Channel and children's networks in general were so obsessed with ships that like they would base the finale of the series on the ships. So, you know, for On Deck, a big part of that was the relationship between Zach and Maya and the relationship of Cody and Bailey and Miss Tutwiler and Mr. Mosby. And to a certain degree, that's the case for SWAC as well. Although there is some pretty upsetting conclusions that we have to talk about here today. So that'll be the way we end the video, as always, because I feel like you end the video with talking about the finale. That makes sense. But usually the finale is where I have the most, like, to say. When it comes to Mabav, obviously, because, you know, that show was canceled prematurely, as so was this one. So make sure you stick around to the end. And I'm not saying that because, like, I want the viewer retention. Like, I don't even have mid-roll ads on this channel. So, like, you can do whatever you want, but I'm like, I genuinely like the stuff I'm going to have to say about the finale, so that's why I want people to watch it. Anyways, so, Channy, Chad and Sonny, Chad Dillon Cooper and Sonny Monroe. We love them, don't we? That seems to be the only thing people remember from this show. And for good reason, because this is a very unique thing for Disney Channel sitcoms. And I was going to say for children's sitcoms in general, but I'm not sure, like, international sitcoms for children, if they really do the enemies to lovers thing as often. But for sure, on Disney Channel, it's basically unheard of. So it was a very unique thing to happen within the show. Shows like On Deck dealt with the idea of, like, finding your soulmate in high school, along with a lot of others as well. And then Good Luck Charlie dealt with, like, cheating, and, like, if your boyfriend cheated on you. And this show deals with if you accidentally fall in love with somebody who you hate. I think what I like the most about their pairing is that it's very clear that Chad catches feelings first. Like in the episode where Chad is a guest star on So Random, and in a sketch they have to kiss each other, and Chad is kind of like being a bully, like he always is with Sonny, where he's like, if you kiss me, you're gonna fall in love with me. You know, you're gonna fall in love with me. Every co-star I've had falls in love with me. I'm gonna say no. Just letting you know, we're not gonna date, even though you're gonna fall in love with me. So you're gonna have to deal with that. And of course, Sonny is like, I fucking hate you. Why would I fall in love with you? But then he slips up, and he says, we're gonna fall in love. And she's like, we? And it's so great, because it's clear that, like, he already has feelings, but since he's Chad Dillon Cooper, he can't, like, pursue her, because she's a random, you know? She's part of the random cast. So, like, I love that so much. It works really well. We start with Sonny having a lot of infatuation for Chad because he's a famous celebrity and she's just a girl from Wisconsin. But then when she actually gets to know him as a person, she's like, this guy fucking sucks. And they like hate each other and they're consistently beefing in every episode. But then he starts like, you know, accidentally slipping up that he has a thing for her. And it's wonderful. The next episode really that's important in their relationship is the Channy fake dating episode. I've talked about it a lot already. That's because it's so good.
Oh, you should probably put your head on my shoulder.
This is nice. In theory.
Yeah, we make a good couple. Hypothetically.
In this episode, the reason why they're fake dating is because Sonny goes on a date with a Mackenzie Falls guest star who we find out used to date Tawny and broke Tawny's heart. But then, get it? Because Tawni Hart? Oh, good stuff. So while he's dating Sonny, he decides he wants to try and get back with Tawny, which the two of them just can't deal with. So they decide to scheme him, to double play him. And Sonny is like, if I'm out on a date with somebody else, then he'll want me back. And then we'll both dump him and he'll be sad and lonely. So that's why Chad and Sonny fake date. And they have a fake kiss as well. A fake out, make out, if you will. And then there's the prom episode, which I have a little bit of an issue with. My thing about sitcoms that have, like, unique premises that I don't understand is that they always want to have a prom episode. And, like, in my mind, I'm like, why do the normal high school shows not have prom episodes, but the abnormal ones where a prom wouldn't make sense, they feel the need to insert a prom? I don't get it. I kind of get it, in the sense that, like, I understand the characters are longing for a sense of normalcy, so, like, a prom is what they want. They did this in Big Time Rush as well, because, you know, they go to school in a shoe closet, so they're like, hey, what if we were normal for once and had, like, a high school prom? I get that. I understand that, actually. But I don't see it as necessary. Like, I didn't go to prom, and I'm just fine. I'm talking to a camera at 9 p.m. about a Disney Channel sitcom from a decade ago. So maybe you're not just fine. Maybe that's the case. In this episode, Chad uncharacteristically does something very nice for Sonny, and I think that's cool. They have a cute little moment together. Another moment that I would consider a Channy moment when it comes to, like, them building their romance is the episode where it's Chad's birthday and he's having a birthday party. Technically this doesn't count because they still are kind of really mean to each other, but the reason why I count it is because he invites her to his birthday party in the first place. Which is, like, shocking because they set up that he, like, only invites the most exclusive people to his birthday party. And so Sonny is like, cool, that means I'm not going to get invited, which means I don't have to say no. Awesome, because I don't want to go. And then he does invite her, and she's like, no. And he's offended because he's like, this is the most exclusive party ever. Why don't you want to go? And it's like, she's like, because I hate you. But then she does end up going because she wants to please her friend who's coming to visit from out of town. I consider that a Channy moment. I guess I should also mention some of the things that make them enemies in the first place. Like I said earlier, you know, Sonny realizes that he's a bit of a dickhead, so that's why she grows to hate him. But other moments, like an early episode, the fan mail episode, is a good example as well, where he, like, chastises Sonny for not getting fan mail yet, even though I think she's only been on the show for, like, a week at this point or something. Like, she's very new on the show, and fan mail is probably already starting to be phased out by this point because, like, people just leave comments on your Instagram page now, you know? Although it is 2010, so technically not yet. So yeah, she hasn't gotten any fan mail, basically, and Chad makes fun of her for that. So she writes some fake fan mail, and it's embarrassing, whatever. He's really mean to her in that episode, so there you go. I completely forgot to mention, though, that he actually does something really nice for her and pretends to be her fake fan when they invite the fan that she invented in the letter to come over because he realizes that she'd get embarrassed. So it's actually a pro-Channy moment. See, they were just meant to be. I can't think of any cons. And then by the end of season 1, they hint at the idea that they might get together and they might have feelings for each other. But that's just like a very obvious, like, end of season 1 hook, you know? It's like in Gilmore Girls at the end of season 3 when both Lorelai and Luke are in happy, loving relationships, but they needed a little will they, won't they little hooker for the end of the season. They have Luke have a dream where, like, he imagines Lorelai coming to him and being like, I want to be in love with you. I'm in love with you. Let's get married. And then he wakes up and he's like, that was weird. And it's like, that was not necessary at all. They're both in relationships. Why is he having a dream about Lorelai? And if he is, why does that matter to the story at all? It doesn't. They were just trying to get members hooked. They're trying to get fucking viewers to be like, ooh, they might date. And it's like, no, they won't until the season 4 finale. So let's skip right into them actually getting together. When does Channy become legit? Like I said earlier with Mackenzie Falls, Sonny going on a Mackenzie Falls binge is what causes Channy to originally get together. What ends up happening is that Sonny catches up on episodes and there's a cliffhanger and she's like, I gotta know what happens in the next episode. She's like, I can just ask Chad because they're filming it currently, so I need to know what happens. And so of course in a sitcom way she's extremely vague about it and is like, when are they going to admit that they love each other? Because it's like a romance plot within the episode of Mackenzie Falls, and she's like, when are they going to admit that they love each other? Like, come on, like what's the answer, Chad? And he's like, will you go on a date with me, Sonny? And it's like, oh. That moment, as a grown-ass adult, I was on the floor, crying in tears, dead on the floor, because holy shit, they did such a good job of building up this storyline. Even in the midst of, like, season 2 being kind of bad and weird, like, it was so good. It was amazing, actually. And what I like about this is that, like, Sonny isn't automatically like, yeah, I'll go on a date with you. She's like, this is weird. Like, I don't feel like romantic feelings for him, you know? And it's like, that's very interesting because, you know, she has to really think about it. Like, do I want to date Chad Dillon Cooper? And, you know, she eventually decides yes, that she does. And a lot of the beef between her friends and the Mackenzie Falls cast, who, you know, don't have names and usually just background characters, their beef is like one of the main reasons because she's like, well, my friends don't like him, so like we can't be together. They make it like an unrequited love sort of thing, like a Romeo and Juliet situation where it's like we come from opposite worlds, whatever. But they do eventually start dating, and I think it's very cute. One of my favorite things about Channy, oh my god, we're just gonna continue on. If you hear some man shouting, not my fault. I live in a dorm room. Everyone's like sardine packed in here, so you're gonna hear some noises. Anyways, I really like that the relationship that Chad and Sonny have is unique. It works out. I think their first date is like horribly embarrassing. Like, I think Chad vomits on her. So I like that it took them a long time to get together, and then when they do get together, it's not easy at all. Like, their date is really awkward, and they don't even kiss. And then there's a whole episode about how they haven't had their first kiss yet. And they go on, like, a talk show, again, as, like, a power couple, and, you know, the first thing that the person asks is, like, oh, how was your first kiss? And they have to awkwardly be like, we haven't kissed yet. Which is, like, a big deal, because they're, you know, like, you know, high school aged kids. You'd think they'd be doing that kind of stuff, but they're not, because they're not there yet in their relationship. And I think that was really wonderful to represent. I feel like the interviewer asking about their first kiss and them immediately getting like very uncomfortable about it and feeling pressured to like then kiss and have like the perfect first kiss moment is a metaphor for like how invasive interviewers are with like children and their like, you know, sexual lives and stuff. What comes to mind is Britney Spears, like all of the awful questions they would ask her as like a 17-year-old girl. Super weird. So I feel like that being commentary is really nice. I do appreciate that. And at the end of the episode, they do share their first kiss, not because they felt pressure to or because they had to stage it right, but just because they wanted to. So I think that's very wonderful. The Wisconsin two-parter also brings like their relationship into question. I think it's the first episode after they officially get together, which kind of upset me because I was like, okay, they're together and all of a sudden we have some sort of conflict in their relationship. No, thank you. And it's not them actually being together. It's that a cast member on Mackenzie Falls is like a stalker and is in love with Chad Dillon Cooper. So she tries to off Sonny or something, I think. It's a really interesting two-parter. I remember watching it like live on TV and being like, this is weird, but you know, I still enjoyed it because I enjoy Channy. Now it's time to talk about the bad stuff. The stuff I didn't like, because boy, there's a lot of that too. I'm really rooting for Channy, you know? I think that they're cool. Yes, there's some awkward moments where Chad is like being a little bit self-absorbed and like not willing to make time for Sonny. But like other than that, like they're still really cute. They're doing that thing where they're like really like romancy and like honeymoon phase with each other, and all of their friends are just like, ew, gross, disgusting. Like they're calling each other like honey boo pookins and stuff like that.
Honey poo pookins!
I think that's cute. I like that they include that very casually into the episodes, and that the episodes don't like fundamentally change. Like it doesn't just become like the Sonny and Chad show, but like you can still understand that they're together. A later season 2 episode puts their relationship into question in a way that haunts my dreams. It turns my dreams into nightmares. It's really bad, so let's strap in. So, the season 2 episode where we find out that Chad sends his stunt double on dates with Sonny so he doesn't get hurt. That's not good. I think they said in the episode that it's because of his TV show contract, because he's the lead character. He can't be doing dangerous things that can get him injured and not performing on the show, which I can believe, but it also seems like they threw that in last minute as an excuse, and originally the whole idea was just that like he's so self-absorbed with himself that he is afraid of getting any possible injury. So because of that, he hires a stunt double, whether it's like going on a bike ride or eating Mexican food. He's like, nope, that'll cause me bodily harm and I can't do it. And that's a very ridiculous plot line, right? Like we can all agree that that is very ridiculous. And also the fact that Chad Dylan Cooper's stunt double, Chaz, is just also played by Sterling Knight, so they look identical, you know? Whatever, that doesn't matter. What does matter is that it brings up a very important part of their relationship. That a lot of shows where the characters have been flanderized to the point of farce, a lot of shows that do that face this issue, where it's like, this character is so concentrated in their personality traits and is so catatonically like a cartoon character that they realistically and feasibly could not be in a relationship with another person. And that is what has happened with Chad and Sonny at this point in the show. Like, Chad is so self-absorbed to the point where he actually cannot be in a relationship with somebody else because he is that obsessed with himself. And that's weird to even think about, right? Because it's like, that's such an odd issue to run into for a TV show. Like, just give him a few humanizing, humbling moments. They did that in season 1, but by this point, it's like, literally like, yeah, that's what Chad Dylan Cooper would do. It's not abnormal for him to be behaving like that. And that is what the problem is. And the show realized it. They realized it, and they wrote some plot lines about it, and then they did fucking nothing about it. It pisses me off so much. Sonny breaks up with him over this, justifiably, but by the end of the episode, he says that he's going to do better, and that he's going to try harder to, you know, actually think and care about her, and not just himself. But that doesn't happen. So they get back together at the end of the episode, but nothing changes. And then we get to the final episodes of the entire show, and Channy just falls apart at the seams. It breaks down in this very depressing and upsetting way. I might just cry. So what happens to Channy? What happens? What happens in this episode? A fucking lot, okay? So there's a Teen Choice Awards style awards ceremony that's happening, and Mackenzie Falls and So Random are in the same category for like best children's TV show or whatever of the year. And the So Random cast is like, we're not going to win. We never win. Mackenzie Falls wins every year. So, you know, they get excited and they go to the show. And Sonny is like, what if we win, though? Like, she's being optimistic about it, even though the rest of the cast have already, you know, given up to Mackenzie Falls' ways, which is like a general understanding of the show. So that's a good, you know, standard plot line to get into. Like, that works. So Sonny is like, we might win. And Chad Dylan Cooper, her boyfriend, is like, no, you won't win. I'm going to win because I always win because I'm awesome. And she gets a little offended by this. She's like, but like, you would be okay if I won, right? Like, you've won all these years before, I can win once, right? And he's like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, no, actually not though. So Random does end up winning. And it's a shock to everybody. And Sonny is so excited. Like, she's so proud of this moment. It's like something she really cares about and is honored to have happened to her. And Chad is so upset and so pissed off that he is not the center of attention for a moment that he cannot handle it and forces the judges to go back and do a recount. He literally said, stop the count. Can you believe that? And they do the recount, and apparently Mackenzie Falls did win, and they miscounted, and that's why So Random got the award, which, like, is kind of weird. They could have had it where So Random won all the time, the whole time, and Chad was just that much of a asshole that he still did the recount and was proven wrong. But for whatever reason, they decided that Mackenzie Falls did end up winning. So he takes the trophy away from them. And Sonny is like, this is a microcosm for our entire relationship. You are so obsessed with yourself that we cannot be together. Like, she was truly hurt and offended that he just could not accept her winning for once, winning something, or being happy, because that meant it causes him displeasure. And so she breaks up with him over this. Again, justifiably. The whole time I was like, yeah, she should break up with him for that, even though I want them to be together. And it's that sitcom moment, like I said, that fucking sitcom moment. They don't want the character to change. They don't want Chad Dylan Cooper to grow as a human being because they think it's so fucking funny that he's self-absorbed and hates everybody. Like, yeah, that's cute, that's cool, but like, the time for growth is now. And they know that. The show fucking knew it, and they did jack shit about it because they were so fucking lazy, and then a bunch of horrible life shit happened, and the show ended forever. So let's talk about the season 2 finale, guys. I'm actually getting mad. Like, I am getting so upset right now. Okay, let's talk about the finale, guys. I need to get some water. I need to calm myself down. This is bad. I took a break. I'm back with some water. Let's talk about the season 2 finale, guys. So here's the thing with the season 2 finale. It's dog shit. But, like, it's a new kind of dog shit from the rest of the show. It's like unique in its horribleness. In a way that I wasn't expecting when watching the entire show. So, the finale, weirdly, is focused on introducing a new character. And, like, I swear, like, 3/4 of the episode is about this new character that's being introduced. And I guess that's fine. I think they were trying to find a way to spruce up the show, kind of reinvent it a little bit, because I don't think there's, like, any, if little, discussion about So Random and the idea that all of these people are actors on a TV show. Like, I think they were trying to kind of shift gears a little bit. One of my conspiracy theories, one of my crackpot theories, is that this is actually supposed to be Season 3, Episode 1, and because of the circumstances, which we're going to talk about after this, it ended up being the season finale. Because they built a whole new set, a brand new set, and they introduced a new character, and they, like, established a bunch of other stuff. So, it could have been a season 2 finale that's, like, establishing what's yet to come. But, like, I would also not be shocked to find out that it actually was, like, supposed to be season 3, episode 1. So anyway, so there's this new girl, I forgot her name, that's how unmemorable she is. I don't think Zora's in this episode either, which is, like, weird. Well, her not being there is, like, normal for the show, but, like, the fact that it's an important episode and she's not there makes me upset, so that's why I called it weird. There's this new character, and she works at a coffee shop, which is, like, outdoors and, I don't know, trailer park themed. It's a really weird looking set, which I know is, like, kind of So Random's, like, charm, so it doesn't look weird within the show, it just looks different. Like, it doesn't fit the theming of the show, in my opinion, but besides the point. This new girl works at this coffee shop, and she's trying to encourage Sonny to perform music, because, of course, Sonny is, like, very upset about this breakup, so she's like, I'm just gonna focus on my music, which, good for them, I'm glad, that they're not worried about Chad and are trying to focus on their happiness. That's quite nice. So this girl that worked at this coffee shop is like, oh, we have open mics. You should sign up for the open mic. That'll be awesome. It'll be cool. I think for whatever reason her friends don't want her to, so she pretends to not do it, but then does it. Meanwhile, Sonny is at her shitty apartment, and the person who is upstairs above them is constantly like, your music fucking sucks, stop singing, stop being so loud. And so they kind of have a fight with each other. But then we find out that the girl that works at the coffee shop is now Sonny's new upstairs roommate. Could you believe that? Wow, isn't that quirky? So this girl is supposed to be established as I guess a new member of the gang, They also very not subtly set up the fact that she's supposed to be a romantic interest for Grady. They both are really into each other or whatever. So that was going to be a thing they did later on. I guess because Channy was falling apart, they were let's get a new romance in the mix. Good for Grady. He deserves somebody who will treat him right. I don't know if this girl's the person, but, they were at least trying. So Chad is there, and he's trying to get Sonny back, but he hasn't changed at all. None of this has caused character growth within him. Literally none of it. It's quite upsetting, honestly. It's kind of sad, actually. It shows that, this is a real issue within the show, and they don't want to solve it because they think Chad is funny. So Sonny's pretty nervous about this open mic, and I can't remember if they explained away why she was, or if they just completely rewrote all of these characters to not be, literal micro-celebrities, but besides the point. She, is concerned about how the audience is going to react to her singing a song on stage. So what Chad does is he hires a bunch of background actors to be the people in the audience, so she'll get a positive reaction. And I guess he figured that once she was happy with the performance, she would then want to get back together with him. I'm not sure, but he's trying to do this as a point of affection, but it just pisses off Sonny even more, justifiably, because again, it's he doesn't understand her, he doesn't care about her, he just wants to get back together with her because it hurt his ego, the fact that he was dumped. You know what I mean? And this is the exact opposite thing she would have wanted, because she wanted a real and honest reaction to her music, and Chad literally took that away from her. So it's bad. The song that Sonny sings is about trying to decide whether you want to get back together with somebody or not, which is, reflecting their current state of mind. And the show ends, the series ends, with it seeming like Sonny might want to get back together with Chad. Maybe they will even though they won't at this current moment. And I think I actually punched my computer screen, when I saw that moment. Because the show just ends. It just evaporates into thin air on maybe they'll get together, but not this episode. I must remain calm. Everything's fine. No. I'm not going to rage out over Sonny with a Chance. I'm not going to rage out on my YouTube channel. It's embarrassing. No one wants to see that. So yeah, that's SWAC, everybody. So why was SWAC cancelled? The answer to that is that Demi Lovato was institutionalized. I recommend the 2 documentaries that Demi Lovato made that are on YouTube for free that you should really check out. So for those who are unaware, Demi Lovato's time working at the Disney Channel was a very fraught time in their life. They were abusing drugs, as well as a lot of other things, had an ED, self-harm issues, a lot of it was quite rough. What ended up causing the show to get canceled was when Demi Lovato was on tour, they were doing lots of drugs. I'll put some euphemisms for the type of drugs on the screen right now. And one night, after a bunch of partying, one of the backup dancers that were on tour with them told Lovato's manager that they were on drugs. And this got Lovato so upset that she punched them in the face. This is where that Stan Twitter meme comes from when Demi Lovato is describing this moment in their life in the documentary.
I invited a bunch of people to dinner, my band and my background dancers. I paid for all the alcohol. Somebody ended up getting weed. I was on Adderall. We had trashed the hotel. The hotel was like threatening us. They went to some of the dancers and asked what had happened. And I think they told on me for using Adderall. Shorty and I had been really close through Camp Rock and Camp Rock 2. So when he said Shorty, I remember thinking, I'm about to beat this bitch up.
So once, the management and everyone was made aware that Demi Lovato was, pretty heavily abusing drugs and alcohol at this time, they were sent to rehab. What Disney ended up doing is getting the rest of the cast and getting them to record stuff that didn't need the character of Sonny within it. I'll explain what this material is a little bit later on, or at least what I think this material is a little bit later on. There's no confirmation. But the show did continue filming while Demi Lovato was at rehab. And when Lovato came back, it was just assumed that they were just going to go straight back to work. But it was then made clear that the show would not be able to continue on. So they canceled Sonny with a Chance. That is why the series has such an unsatisfying ending, because, unprecedented circumstances caused the show to be finished. I recommend you watch the 2 documentaries that Lovato has made on YouTube. They were pretty, helpful resources. And I think Demi Lovato being so open about, their struggles and being an advocate really helped me get through all of this information. And also, them advocating about being an advocate in the first place really helped as well, because that plays into the later issues that happened in their life. I won't get into that now because it has nothing really to do with Disney Channel or SWAC. But again, I recommend watching both of those documentaries because it'll provide insight on their entire life. Yeah, this was so dark and so hard for me to handle that I had to stop making this video. That's why this is coming out at the end of 2023 and not the end of 2022. I was planning to make this video a long time ago, and I had to stop because I was so emotionally distraught by the information that I found out. But seeing that Demi Lovato is absolutely thriving now and doing amazing is what really helped me, push through this video, to know that, the dark times are over and things are much better now for them. So that was quite helpful, I'll be honest. Oh, and even Ashley Norton's video on Demi Lovato, the 2-part series, that's also quite helpful too, because it goes into some more details about other things as well. So yeah, check that out as well. Shouting out another YouTuber. I love that, as if I'm a YouTuber. That was a lot for me to handle personally, but I felt the need to mention it because it is a very important part of SWAC. Having to go back and watch moments from the show and knowing that Demi Lovato was at a very dark place while recording this series and was most likely not happy with what they were doing at this time is really hard to sit through the show after knowing that. But like I said, I feel like Demi Lovato and all of the Disney Channel people who went through some very hard times while they were working there, I think have both reached a sense of comfort and understanding when it comes to the shows that they were in and the network, but have also grown to appreciate what they have. So I think that's pretty cool. Sonny with a Chance actually had a 10-year reunion, I'm pretty sure. It was during the pandemic. They had a little Zoom call reunion and stuff, and that was very sweet. That was very nice to see that they all were really hype and willing to talk about everything. So, you might be interested in that little reunion video. Maybe check it out. I feel like Sonny with a Chance represents all of the good and bad elements of a Disney Channel project, because it provided a lot of happiness and a lot of entertainment for young people, but also behind the scenes was a very, very dark machine that churned people in and out and didn't care whether they were happy or not while doing so. And that's what makes me talking about these shows so difficult at times, because I want to acknowledge all of the abuse that was going on behind the scenes while also taking the show seriously itself. Because it seems like since these shows were made in upsetting circumstances, that we should just write them off as not worth our time. And I think that's not the case at all. Millions of people, and I mean millions of people, watched Sonny with a Chance and were affected by it and laughed at it and had a good time watching it. And I don't want to discount that. And I don't want to give any credit to Disney Channel as well, because everything that the network and the company did only made the show worse. Everything about the show that's good was able to come out of adversity outside of what the network was attempting to do with it. So that is what I like to praise. I like to praise the creativity and the interesting ideas brought about by the creatives, and not the company that's trying to squash that at every given moment. Because that becomes clear with a show like SWAC, where it's clear that the showrunners were not able to let their voice shine as much as they were for shows like Wizards, and that the machine was just too much to bear, and the show had to end because of that. So that's Sonny with a Chance, everybody. I didn't want the ending of this video to be so dark, but I knew I was going to have to talk about some dark subject matter, so it was inevitable. Thank you for watching, genuinely. This is a new kind of setup I'm doing, a new idea. I got the new camera, so I figured let's make the whole video on camera with a few clips and stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how to use the camera, so I apologize if there's some awkward bits or some weird elements. I'm still learning. I'm learning every day. I had a lot of fun doing this, like I did. You know, I love making these little videos. What started me on the YouTubes, what started me on YouTube was I would, sit at like the cafeteria table in high school with all my friends and just like rant and go on these rants like I do in front of the camera with all my friends, and they gave no shits at all. Like, no one wanted to hear me spew all this garbage at 7:30 in the morning. Fair enough, because they didn't ask for it. So I figured a YouTube video would be a more productive way of doing that, because when you click on the video, you're asking for it, okay? If that's what you were dying to see, I'm glad you got to experience that, and I'm glad I got to make it. So let me know if this format is cool or not, or if I should go back to, not having my mug on screen. Who knows? Maybe you'd prefer that. But other than that, check out my other videos. I have a little Disney Channel playlist that I've created because I have some more Disney Channel stuff that I'm going to talk about later on. And I'm excited to move on with this series. For those who have seen the other videos, you would know that I am doing these videos in order of a Tumblr poll that I did like already a year ago at this point, but I'm still working through it. And these are all of, I'm going to try to put it on the screen, but these are all the ones that I've worked through. So now we are going to be entering what I like to call the decom phase of the channel, because the big video I've been working on for literal years now, because it's taken me so long to watch these projects, is a video where I rank and watch every single Disney Channel original movie, which there's over 100 of. So that's very exciting. So I figured I would make videos about movies that I have a lot to say about in more than just like 2 or 3 minute segments, and then have that lead up to the big decom video, which is very exciting and probably won't come out for a long time. So that's why I figured if I talk about movies in between then, it'll help kind of, make sure there's stuff still going up on the channel. So that's exciting. So the next Disney Channel related thing I'm going to be talking about on the channel is Radio Rebel, which I have so much to say about. I think the video's gonna be very long. I love Radio Rebel. It's one of my favorite movies. I'm not joking. I'm not lying. So it's gonna be an in-depth discussion. It's not just gonna be me hating on the movie for a long time, because I think that the movie deserves more than that. So that's gonna be the next video about Disney Channel related on the channel. I'm gonna talk about music for a little bit, because I've been wanting to talk about music on this channel for a long time. And if you're unaware, I'm a bit of an emo, so there's going to be some talks about, some stuff like that. So if you're interested in hearing me talk about music, stick around. And like I said, thank you so much for watching this video. I loved making it, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Watch my video on Max Russo. I love that one. I watched it recently. It's like, I really enjoy it.
So